Hey, the 49ers have made a couple of trades. The most recent, Brian Robinson joins the 49ers. We'll talk about it. New Sprint Right Option podcast starts now. Jason, hit our music.
Burp, 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 burp. I'm Andrew Pasquini. So,
And that's Jason Aponte. That should just be the transition there is I'm Andrew Pasquini, and then I'll say I'm Jason Aponte. Confuse the people. But realistically, if you've been listening, I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by the beautiful, the incomparable Jason Aponte. It's a lunchtime sprint ride option podcast here. And we have some breaking news. The San Francisco 49ers have made their second trade of the week, acquiring Brian Robinson Jr. from the Washington Commanders. He had a bit of a contract dispute with the Commanders. Commanders decided he's no longer valuable to them. They have a couple other running backs that they're excited for. And now Brian Robinson Jr. is a San Francisco 49er. Jason, before we really break it down, give me your instant reaction to the trade that happened. I think right around when I woke up this morning.
well, thank God that these trades have happened because we would have been piddling around talking about Jim Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance. Like, thank God that this has happened. No matter what the result of this trade is on the field, saving us from the nonsense that was going to be spewed this entire week. I mean, which is still on the docket, and having to talk about actual football. Thank you. No, one way or another, thank you. But look, when you factor in the cost of the trade, the fact that the Washington Commanders are picking up some of the bill, the fact that it solidifies the room, there's a few ways to look at this. First of all, that 6th-round pick that they sent was the one that they received for Jordan Mason.
Mm-hmm.
So you can stop crying about Jordan Mason. Now, the Jordan Mason trade also got them Marcus Siegel. So you get Marcus Siegel and Brian Robinson, and you're paying him $2 million this year. Now, yes, Brian Robinson's on an expiring deal. Yes, Brian Robinson is a first and second down guy who doesn't offer much in the pass game. But 22 personnel is sure to jump. 22 personnel was already something that was big because Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey are on the field. Now, Brian Robinson and Christian McCaffrey can be on the field, and now you can really mitigate the wide receiver room these first few weeks with an experienced back, somebody who has a nose for the end zone. And I mean, there's not really many negatives from this, right? I'll be honest. Everyone knows that I was, hey, listen, I'm not really sending draft capital away for him. And, you could look at it and say, why is Washington so desperate to get away from him?
Yeah.
Based on, a rookie and Chris Rodriguez and Austin Eckler. Like, isn't that a red flag? But in terms of this, having him as a steady backup, it shows you that the 49ers weren't comfortable with Isaac Garendo going into this season. Isaac Garendo came back from an injury and he fumbled 3 times yesterday. That had to be an alarm bell off in their heads, right? So you solidify the room. It provides depth. It gives you experience. You're not paying anything. You turn that draft pick that you got from Jordan Mason, which is a 6th-rounder, into a productive player. There's not really many negatives right here. So this one, it just makes you feel much better about the running back room. How could you not be excited about that?
Yeah, I think my instant reaction was more negative. I had a lot of those thoughts of like, what is this move? Just because we've talked about it ad nauseum in this podcast, Jason. Just kind of the production Kyle Shanahan can get out of any type of running back, the Matt Breidas, the Raheem Mosterts, Jeff Wilsons of the world. And my first thought was, okay, well, why are we trading draft capital for a backup running back? And then I kind of start to thinking, and I think there's really 2 branches that this can go off of. It's either A, they traded a 6th-round pick, which is the pick they got for the Jordan Mason deal, as you mentioned, for a backup running back. And that, in theory, maybe not the best, because if we do live in a world where Christian McCaffrey is going to get 70% of the carries, then I'm a little lost on this. I just think you have Jeff Wilson, you have Jordan James, you have Isaac Garendo. I know they're not super high on Garendo right now because A, he's fumbling a lot, and B, the injury issues. But then the other side of it, and it's something we've talked about a little bit here, is the idea of Christian McCaffrey being used as the Debo role, more as an out wide receiver. And now if that's the case, I love this move. Yeah. Because if now you have an established guy instead of Isaac Garendo, who, rookie year last season, or Jordan James, who this would be his rookie season, you now have an established guy to take more carries. And if it's more of a 50-50, I don't think we'll ever see a 50-50 with Christian McCaffrey on the roster. But let's say it's a 60-40 carry ratio where McCaffrey splits out wide more often. I really like this move, and the numbers don't necessarily lie. He's been consistent: 205 attempts, 797 yards in 2022, 178 attempts for 733 yards in 2023, 187 attempts for 799 yards last season, and his touchdown total keeps going up. So he does have that nose for the end zone, whatever that might mean. But I think if we're really looking towards a offensive system that's going to utilize Christian McCaffrey and more as just a running back, but in that offensive weapons position, you need a better running back to make that work. And I think this is the first indicator that maybe McCaffrey is going to be in a more expanded role, because you have Jeff Wilson, right? You have a guy you know of, and to be that second running back to take the 3 carries that not Christian McCaffrey is going to get in games. But I think you only make this move if you feel like McCaffrey's not going to be as much out in the backfield. And he's obviously going to get plenty of carries in the backfield. I'm not sitting here saying Brian Robinson should out carry Christian McCaffrey. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if McCaffrey gets 60% of the carries and then 40% of the time he's split out wide, or whatever fictional number I just want to throw out there, you feel much, much more comfortable with Brian Robinson, who has 15 career touchdowns and 37 starts, than you do a Jordan James and Isaac Garendo and Jeff Wilson in the year 2025. So I think at first I was the like, okay, this trade doesn't necessarily make sense. But thank God, Jason, we had 4 hours to think about it and do this podcast. So I would come in and be like, you know what? No, this does make sense, especially if we're trying to adapt the offense. And I mean, in case you're wondering how messed up my brain is with this Niners roster, what does this mean for Skyy Moore? Because I thought maybe Skyy Moore would be in a little bit of that, not gadget role player. I'm not saying that a Debo level, but there's something there with him being able to run those end arounds and all that stuff, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm saying this kind of tongue in cheek. Brian Robinson doesn't affect Skyy Moore. I don't even think Skyy Moore affects Skyy Moore at this point. But it just goes to show, I think I think Shanahan's trying to tell us a little bit of what this offense is going to look like with Christian McCaffrey and now Brian Robinson.
Well, the way to maximize Christian McCaffrey's production is to save him from these hits. And receptions are more valuable than rushes, right? And, if you want examples of this type of offense being run, I remember when we first got Tevin Coleman and I watched the Atlanta offense, right? And the game that always jumped out to me was the Denver game. And in Denver, right, I don't know if you guys remember, Tevin Coleman has sickle cell anemia, if I'm not mistaken. He wasn't supposed to play in this game because of the altitude, and they always tell you, like, this is not right. But in that game, the Falcons ran 22 personnel, and they ran empty with Tevin Coleman. He destroyed Denver from the slot. Now, I'm just giving you an example of Kyle Shanahan using this offense and being able to do it. Now, when we talk about how this offense has been lifted, and it's probably in the best hands that it's been in since Matt Ryan, that's with Brock Purdy. And in Seattle, week 1, I wouldn't be shocked if you start to see a little bit more of empty stuff, and it stretches out the defense pause, and it makes them, like, have to defend every blade of grass. I think there's examples of that. And again, McCaffrey is still going to be the guy on first and second down, most likely. But don't be shocked if this starts to turn into a 5 wide receiver split out, McCaffrey and Pearsall and Kittle and, whatever, like those 3. And then you can have Robinson in the backfield. Like the groupings can get crazy here. And Kyle has shown himself to be adaptable to that. So there's ways to look at this and say Robinson can take the brunt of those, in between the tackles hits, and you can maximize Christian McCaffrey and keep him fresh while not taking him off the field. And this is one of the ways that you can do it. There's plenty of examples of it. So it's really hard when you look at the compensation. It's really hard when you think of the personnel groupings and the way that this offense can run to see any sort of negatives. And then when you throw in the fact that Washington is taking on some of this salary just so they can get that 6th-round pick, this is like a steal. Like, this is even better than them just signing him from being cut, because you would have to still pay all of that money. So, look, while I wasn't exactly gung-ho about, moving for Brian Robinson and, and the fact that I believe that he's a first and second down guy and he doesn't really offer much in the third down, when you start to really peel into this and you start to get into this, Kyle can really start to get creative and also shield his guys from getting hurt. And you know what? While Isaac Garendo is not being highly regarded right now, he is still a wide receiver at heart, and you can still use him in that way as well too. So I wouldn't exactly count him all the way out of this, especially if what's going on with the wide receiver room continues in terms of injuries and everything as well too. John V, thank you for the donation, buddy. Fellas, we get a better pass catcher and blocker than we had in Jordan Mason for a lot less. I like the less aggressive moves we're making. Yeah, and all of this stuff lines up, right? Like, you can find a way to use these guys that have particular skill sets. I say this all the time. Don't tell your plumber to fix your roof. If guys struggle at certain things and you've got them there, and and Isaac Garendo's a better pass catcher, and you're trying to save Chris, then do that. And it's not hard to see what they're cooking when it comes to that. And them fortifying the running back room shows what they feel about what this wide receiver room is going to look like. So, there's not many negatives from this. Look, I'm not as high on Brian Robinson, the player himself. I feel like, he's declined a little bit, especially. And then, like, when you couple the fact that Washington's doing everything that they can to move away from him, that's a bit of a red flag. But in terms of how he's going to be used here and the way that you can maximize his efficiency, and it's 1 year, and the other thing that kind of concerns me is, he's a free agent next year, so you've traded for somebody who is essentially just a 1 year rental. But
yeah.
those are the negatives. But other than that, like, from a personnel grouping and offensive standpoint, I see the vision, and I think that you can really maximize his efficiency that way.
John, thank you again for the donation. We appreciate it. $10 closer to our goal of the Immortal Chamber. So shout out, John, for that. But yeah, no, it really what it comes down to. You remember back in 2019, 2020, Jason, 2021, we kind of talk about this idea of positionless football with Kyle Shanahan. And that's what this move does. It just gives you more flexibility with the players you have. And that's why I think I like it the most. And as I said, over the past 4 hours, I've kind of grown to like this trade. Is it gives Shanahan flexibility, and with that flexibility, I don't know if you know this, Jason. I really trust Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, as a head coach. And if there's a move that gives him more flexibility with these players, because I think we haven't necessarily discussed, and it's something that we probably will talk about kind of closer to the season. We're still a couple weeks away. But the Debo role has been very important. I know 2021, was the big year for him, but it's been an important role the past couple of seasons. That's why last year his decline in play was so big to the Niners, because they didn't have that guy to kind of change the pace up. And now what Brian Robinson does is it gives you that other option of, okay, well, that 22 personnel you talk about with two running backs, two tight ends, and maybe McCaffrey kicks out wide, all that stuff. And it gives flexibility. And I think that's what the Niners offense was missing, because I don't think there's much trust with Isaac Garendo right now. I don't think that there's trust with Jordan James, and that's not his fault. He's a rookie. He's got to earn that trust. Kyle Shanahan and his rookies.
And he's hurt.
You got to you earn that trust, and he's hurt. That obviously doesn't help. And now you have, again, I think it's a little weird that Washington was so eager to get rid of Brian Robinson. I do think that's a red flag. I don't think that's something that should be ignored. But if you look at the numbers, like, the Niners shouldn't be complaining. The Niners should not be complaining. This is a guy who can average 4 yards a carry. And if you can get him even like 7-8 carries a game, that helps. That's something. And he has that nose for the end zone. So maybe I haven't looked into his touchdowns specifically. I'm gonna look into that as you talk here, Jason. Yeah. But I'm curious to see how many of his touchdowns came within the red zone, right? Because that's something that was huge.
I would bet probably
last year.
I would bet probably 80%.
I'm gonna try and let's see if I could pull that up real quick while you're talking. But if he's a guy, he has a nose for the end zone. He's having more touchdowns every year as he goes along. It can't hurt. I mean, the big thing we talked about was the lack of Christian McCaffrey last year in the red zone, and obviously, ideally, you have Christian McCaffrey for 17 games this season, God willing, right? But even in a situation where McCaffrey needs a play, you bring in Brian Robinson in the red zone. I'm gonna hold that up right now as you talk a little more, see if I can find how many of touchdowns came within the red zone.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the red zone. And he does have a nose for the end zone. Most likely, I would say I'm going to bet 80% of his touchdowns have come from the red zone. He's not exactly a burner, so he's not hitting these long plays, out of the backfield. Like, he's not that home run hitter, but he is that hammer in the red zone. And if you look at, look, you can do this as well too, right? we're wondering why Washington wants to get away from him so badly. But could it be that he was a very poor fit in a Cliff Kingsbury offense, right? Like he necessarily doesn't fit that offense, RPO style, ball in the belly type thing. That they're all about quick passes and everything as well too. Maybe that's the case. That's definitely one piece of the puzzle. And outside zone has always been good. And you talked about it, Andrew. The 49ers, right, have gotten production from guys off the street and
Mm-hmm.
guys who have been undrafted free agents. Well, Brian Robinson isn't that. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you think about his diminished value, you still have to believe that that continues, right? When you look at what they've gotten out of Jordan Mason last year, when you look at, obviously we talked about it, Jeff Wilson and Matt Breida and,
Mm-hmm.
Jerick McKinnon, haha. You have to think that that continues. So again, just because that is a bit of a red flag in my mind that Washington wants to get away from him, it is very possible that Cliff Kingsbury's offense is not geared towards him. They realized that and they wanted to get something back, and Kyle Shanahan's system can lift him up in the same way, regardless of whether he's not as fast as other guys or anything like that, because he's gotten so much out of other players that have been less talented than Brian Robinson.
20 career touchdowns for Brian Robinson. 17 of the 20 have come inside the red zone.
Bang!
1, 2, 3 have been receiving. The other 14 have been rushing. His 3 longest touchdowns have been a 51-yard receiving touchdown, a 40-yard rushing touchdown, a 24-yard receiving touchdown. Everything else has been within the red zone. 15-yard rushing, 15-yard rushing. I don't need to list every yardage. 6 of those have come at the 1-yard line. So there you go. So like that's something that of note. I haven't seen anybody really talk about that yet. I'm going to throw up a tweet now about it, but that's something that cannot hurt the 49ers.
And Andrew, Jordan Mason was having a hell of a time trying to get in the end zone. Like, he was fine in between the 20s, but when he was getting there to that spot, like, no one wants to talk about that. Like, he wasn't punching the ball in the end zone. And I hate to bring up fantasy football, but you were very excited about what Jordan Mason was doing for you, but he just wasn't punching the ball in the end zone. Now, this is somebody who there's plenty of film clips and everything of him fighting and getting to the end zone, and this is in Washington, and this was in Washington before Jaden Daniels got there. So yes, absolutely, this is another plus.
And people are sitting here talking about the Jordan Mason, moving off of him. They could have just kept Jordan Mason, and I'm just gonna go back to the thing of like, well, where did the Niners get Jordan Mason? What was 5th, 6th round pick, whatever, undrafted, whatever he might have been. Niners turned him into a household name within the 49ers to a point where they got draft. This is an established running back that Kyle Shanahan's taking it, right? It's like, I understand the like of Jordan Mason. It's a homegrown guy that the Niners kind of turned into a running back, but he's, again, Shanahan's done it with Breida, Mostert, Jeff Wilson, a lot of guys. This is already somebody established. This can only help Brian Robinson. I think just him being on the Niners alone makes him a better running back. But then again, I'm also very biased with the 49ers, right? I don't know if you could tell, Jason, we're 49ers fans. We do a whole podcast about it. So we're a little more biased towards them. But as I said, the more I've thought about this move, the better. Mason for Siegel alone is a huge upgrade, absolutely, because now you have a starting safety. And again, like I understand the Jordan Mason wanting him back, but at the end of the day, ultimately what it comes down to is ideally you don't say the name Brian Robinson or Jordan Mason a lot. You just want it to be Christian McCaffrey. But in a vacuum, I think if in a world where Christian McCaffrey, knocking on wood, goes down with injury in 2025, who are you more comfortable with as your running back, Jordan Mason or Brian Robinson? And I see the case for both, but Brian Robinson's done it for 3 years. Jordan Mason did it for half a season last year, and then he got hurt. And there's a full chance that Jordan Mason goes out to Minnesota and he isn't what he was in San Francisco, and vice versa. So I understand why people are, hey, Jordan Mason, Jordan Mason, Jordan Mason. But Jordan Mason didn't help with the red zone issues. Jordan Mason wasn't a player who won the Niners any games. I'm not going to sit here and say Brian Robinson is, but ultimately what it comes down to is, who do you feel more comfortable as your second running back? And Brian Robinson, a more established running back in this league as your second running back, feels much better than Jordan Mason, just based off of the experience over the kind of burst of production Mason had last season.
This has always been my contention, and I really want to go back to that tweet thread about people yelling at me and everything. Listen to me. Getting a draft pick for an undrafted free agent and moving up several spots in the draft. Not several, I think it was about 23 spots.
Mm-hmm.
Then that pick becomes Marcus Siegel. And then that pick that you received for Jordan Mason turns into Brian Robinson for $2 million. This is exactly what I was talking about. That's why you make that deal 10 out of 10 times and don't even look back. Mm-hmm. But people don't understand that the fruits of that trade weren't going to bear themselves out right away. Mm-hmm. You can't, in one breath, look at me and say that you're very excited about Marcus Siegel and still be crying about Jordan Mason. When you get a chance and you trade an undrafted free agent for a draft pick, that is good business, and you do it 10 out of 10 times, and now look what it's turned into. The same thing that we were saying about Jeff Wilson. When the 49ers traded Jeff Wilson to the Miami Dolphins for a pick, that is good business. Always. When you don't use a draft pick on a player and you get a draft pick for that undrafted player, that is good business. And then the 49ers turned around and turned it into Marcus Siegel, who everyone is excited about. And now Robinson, it's how do you look at that trade as a negative? But when you're a prisoner of the moment, when you don't understand the value of an undrafted free agent for a draft pick, and then you moving up and the potential player that you can get, and the 49ers are very good at drafting in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, as we say, right? Like all the time. It just puts you in this box of thinking until you see what the results are, and now you're like, wait a minute, that was actually really good. I will trust this front office, at least in that regard, to trade an undrafted free agent, get a pick, and then turn that pick in the 5th round into a player that everyone's excited in Marcus Siegel, and then they turn that 6th round pick into Brian Robinson Jr. with Washington picking up over $1 million of the deal. All of that is exactly why you do that deal 10 out of 10 times.
I'm also looking at this trade a little more, the Mason trade. The Niners also gave up the 187th pick of the draft, and Minnesota actually traded that pick to move up to 102. They got Ty Felton out of Maryland, a wide receiver. The 187th pick by Houston was actually Jaylen Reed, the safety out of Penn State. So I just kind of wrapping up that trade. Just throwing it out there. And then here, Gojira makes a good point. Can Robinson stay healthy? Because Mason getting hurt and missing multiple games twice last year was the biggest reason to move on for me. And outside of the obvious thing that happened before his rookie season, we don't need to divulge. He's played 12 games in his rookie season after that situation, 15 games last year, 14 games, or 15 games in 23, 14 games in 24. So he stayed healthier in 3 seasons following an unfortunate situation than Jordan Mason did last year. So again, this is a healthy player. We were really going to test how the jerseys do it, because obviously we've kind of seen a trend of players putting on a Niner uniform and injuries happen. But he's been able to stay healthy as well. And that's something that really is the biggest thing the Niners should be looking for in any trade target at this moment is healthy.
Yeah, look, I feel much better about this. When you look at the compensation, when you look at the outlook of this running back room, and you know what? I'll just say it. I posted, and it was topical, right? It makes sense to capitalize on the running back discussion because nobody was going to read my 53-man prediction for defensive line, right? Like that was just going to fall by the wayside. So I did running backs on NinersNation.com. By the way, Andrew and I write for them. I've got my 5 now. I've got my 5. And the 5th one is going to be divisive. But I believe this based on track record. Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson, Kyle Juszczyk. Oh my God, how did I lose? How did I lose the 4th one? Oh, Isaac Garendo.
There you go.
And Jeff Wilson Jr. Jordan James is not getting cut. Jordan James is going to be redshirt IR, in my opinion. And you want to know why I bring that up? Kyle just loves his veterans. Kyle loves his reliability. Mm-hmm. If you need any further example of it, he doesn't feel good right now about Isaac Garendo at all. And he drafted Isaac Garendo. And I'm sure that he was the driving force behind that. But if you're asking him to put his faith in something that he's never seen from Jordan James and what he knows he can get from Jeff Wilson, by the way, if Jeff Wilson's playing and everyone else is hurt, it's not a good thing. By the way, just make sure that, make sure we and if it was Jordan James, still not a good thing because then that means all these other guys are hurt. But I've got it Juszczyk, McCaffrey, Garendo, Brian Robinson, Jeff Wilson, and they're gonna redshirt Jordan James on IR this season. I feel it based on track record. That's my 5 for this 53-man roster. As running backs go.
I'm honestly curious if Garendo's on the hot seat just because of the injuries and all that.
I don't think so. I mean, I would be really, really upset if they moved on from him that quickly.
I'd be surprised as well, but it's just I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the hot seat, maybe a little more than we're being led on to. But that's just a feeling right now, Jason. We have another preseason game before we get there. Do you have any final Brian Robinson thoughts before we move on to the other trade the 49ers made this week?
No, the room is solid now. The room is solid, and you feel better about it. And again, you could mitigate the wide receiver room with different personnel groupings and use these guys. Yeah, look, James is more talented than Jeff Wilson. I don't think that's up for discussion. But that's not what Kyle Shanahan values. Kyle Shanahan values what he can set his watch to. Mm-hmm. When has Kyle Shanahan ever, with a rookie, said, I need this rookie over this familiar player? How often did we ask for Jordan Mason? And how often did Drake Kirkpatrick go out there and Josh Norman? There's plenty of examples of that. It's not a matter of who's more talented. It's clearly Jordan James. But if you're asking Kyle Shanahan to take a leap of faith, I mean, I doubt it, is what I'll say.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the other trade the 49ers made. The 49ers traded I believe it was a 6th, 7th round swap with the Kansas City Chiefs for Skyy Moore. That's Skyy with 2 Ys. Name sounds familiar. Obviously, he was a Chief, so a lot of attention to him, but a lot of people wanted him on the 49ers. Once his draft came around, he was taken in the 2nd round by the Chiefs out of Western Michigan. And safe to say, he has not had a 2nd round pick production in his career thus far. He's played 3 seasons for the Chiefs. 43 career receptions, 494 total yards. I believe he has 1 career receiving touchdown. Let me confirm that. I thought I saw it earlier. I can't find touchdowns right now. I don't know why. Maybe it means he doesn't have one. But he has 1. There we go. I found it, Jason. 1 career touchdown. But the issue with that is in 2024, last season, he had 3 targets in 6 games. So obviously on his way out, I'm sure same questions as the Brian Robinson of like, hey, Washington wanted him out. If Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes couldn't make Skyy Moore work, like what hope is there? Type situation. I thought I'm gonna say this. I think there was some overreactions to this trade. I think people thought Skyy Moore, the Niners traded him to step right in. This is just receiver depth. I don't think he obviously he's not passing the Pearsalls, the Marcus Robinson of the world. I would even go as far as I don't think he passes the Robbie Chosens of the world on the depth chart. I just think this is hey, we needed a receiver. Kansas City was obviously going to move off of him. I know the return situation is something Niner fans talked about. He's had some experience in the return game. He had 14 returns in 2022 and punt return, 3 kick returns in 2022, and then 2 kick returns in 2024. He had a big return against Seattle in the preseason last week for a touchdown. I hope this does not mean the end of Junior Bergen, because I have a feeling about Junior Bergen. Don't know what it is. I like Junior Bergen, so I hope it doesn't mean the end for him. But if
it does.
If it probably does, because it is a player that you can put at receivers. I think that's the thing with Junior Bergen is we only talked about him in the realm of returning kicks. Not once did I ever see him be a part of wide receiver you can use. Skyy Moore is a receiver that you can use. I don't really have any reaction to this trade one way or another. It's an extra body. It's a body that the Niners are going to need week 1. I'm going to put it in the same category as you just said. If we're talking about Jeff Wilson getting carries in week whatever, if we're talking about Skyy Moore getting receptions in week whatever it is this season, the season's not going very well chasing Aponte, but it's a body and it's a familiar name. I think those are really the two. Not saying he's a camp body. Obviously, he's not a camp body. They're not going to cut him. They didn't trade draft stock to cut him, but he is a roster spot at a position the Niners desperately needed roster spots from. So I don't have too big of a reaction one way or another.
This one is conflicting for me. So I was very high on Skyy Moore before that draft.
Dare I say Sky High?
And yeah. All right. All right. That was good. I'll give you that one. I even found a tweet where I'm like, it's Skyy Moore's available, and it's almost like none of you care, right? And I posted, my video, me talking to Joe Cladd about him. I was very high on Skyy Moore.
Yeah.
Swing and a miss. Like let's just call it what it is. Swing and a miss. But it is very much a depth move, right? And it is somebody who can really pick on, who could pick, again, he's fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't blame people for saying, well, if you can't get it done with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and you know what? I think last year was the biggest indictment on Skyy Moore. Last year, that offense was missing all of their receivers, and yet he couldn't break through. He couldn't get on the field and contribute. Yes, he's depth. I don't think they're going to cut him or anything like that, but I'm not like jumping for joy over this. Again, before that draft in 2022, if the 49ers would have drafted him, I would have been screaming from the rooftop. That's how much I thought the player was, but it's evident that the level of competition that he was doing well in college, it didn't translate over to the NFL. But when you think about it, you could take the approach of, if anybody can get something out of him, it might be Kyle Shanahan, but I'm not expecting too much. Look, he's a receiver who has run routes in the NFL. And if you're that's a good way to look at it. And if you're talking about Junior Bergen, I don't think you can keep a wide receiver on this roster that doesn't offer you anything, especially with how injured they are right now. So I'm not expecting too much. I do think he's going to be depth, and I do think he's going to stick around in this roster. He'll be around as like the 6th or 7th guy, when this room gets healthy. So, yeah, man, I wish that 2022 Jason was here, getting this news. But 2025 Jason is just, the reality is he hasn't done much in the NFL. It did not translate from college. I was very high on him. That's a swing and a miss on my part. And now he's on the team, and you just have to adjust your expectations and reality.
I have my dumb football guy take. I think he's going to be better on the Niners simply because he's wearing jersey number 6. 24 is not a receiver.
Wait a minute, but I have a question, right?
Yes.
Isn't that Malik Mustafa's number?
That's a great question, Jason. It might be. Yeah, it is. They have a defense and offense 6, so I'm assuming switch when they cut down.
Right, and you can do that, during the preseason. But I was going to ask you this as well too. Isn't there a rumor that Malik is moving to number 3?
I have not seen that, so maybe that's the case.
Well, what about Robbie Chosen's number? Because Robbie Chosen's got to make this roster now, right? These are all the real good questions.
These are 9. I think this is the best Skyy Moore talk, is what the uniform numbers are going to have. So yeah, so Robbie Chosen is 3, Skyy Moore is 6, Malik Mustafa not on the roster currently is also number 6, but in the preseason you're allowed to have offensive and defensive 6s, just of the same number. They just can't be on the field at the same time. If Malik Mustafa switches to 6, where does Robbie Chosen? Because I would assume Malik Mustafa gets priority on the jersey number over Robbie Chosen. So then where do they go? I mean, Malik Turner's he making the roster? He has number 7 with Thomas Morstead.
No.
Jersey numbers talking here. Sprint Right Option Podcast, Jason. What are the Niners going to do?
Well, we can also pivot this into the wide receiver room, because I wrote about that yesterday, and who I believe is going to be on the 53-man roster. And what's funny is who it's going to be that makes it is so different because of what's going on with all the injuries and stuff. So I've got it. Brandon Ayuk, who starts on PUP.
Yep.
Jennings, Pearsall, Moore, Russell Gage, Jacob Cowing, who might be on IR as well too. You got to put that. Demarcus Robinson's suspension, Jordan Watkins, and Robbie Chosen. Now they only keep 7. So the reason that I have these indicators of suspension and PUP, that means you can move them around, right? Yeah. So Jennings, Pearsall, Moore, Gage, Cowing, Chosen, and Watkins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are your 7, most likely. Yeah. And the sad part is Jordan Watkins might be, on the 53. I mean, not might be. They have to keep him. They drafted him. But he's not going to be up for week 1. So, this is, again, it goes back to the Brian Robinson and McCaffrey idea of how they're going to personnel group in week 1. But I think those are your 7 with Brandon Ayuk on PUP, Demarcus Robinson on the suspension list, And maybe Jacob Cowing hits on IR, depending on what's going on, because that is a hamstring injury and he aggravated it. But I think that's it.
God, there's so many pieces to move around in the receiver room right now, and it's just so it's not great. It's not a great feeling going into a season and all that. I think the game against the Raiders made me feel a little more confident in Ricky Pearsall being the number one receiver going into week one. But yeah, there is so many moving parts to this receiving room that I'm curious. Would Gage and Chosen be the two out once Ayuk and Robinson get put back onto the roster? Do they cut ties with Cowing? Because obviously he just can't say there's so many options the Niners have. I'm very curious to see. Thank God we're podcasters, don't have to make these decisions, Jason Aponte. But there's just so many moving parts. And again, that's why the Skyy Moore move, to kind of bring it back to what we're talking about, makes sense. Is because there's so many moving parts, you might as well throw another one in there that will be ready for week one, right? And that's like, I know it's the prospect of Skyy Moore as a Niner doesn't excite a lot of people, but what it comes down to is the Niners need bodies for week one. I tweeted that during the preseason game against the Raiders when everybody got hurt, is like, people are too busy talking about if the Niners will beat the Seahawks in week one. I'm more worried about them fielding a roster in week one. And that's what the Skyy Moore move is, because you can't go into week one with 3 healthy receivers. You need bodies. So I guess to tie it back, yes, it's a very, very complicated situation, the Niners. And the thing is, the Niners haven't even put themselves in this situation. I guess you could technically say with DeMarcus Robinson, you kind of knew he might get suspended once you signed him.
I'm still so confused by that.
I don't understand how Jordan Addison's been suspended, but Rice isn't suspended.
Nah, forget that,
DeMarcus
Andrew.
Robinson is suspended. It's just
forget that, Andrew.
Parts. Okay,
that's fine. Whatever. That they're gonna give the Chiefs preferential, treatment. Fine. My question is, DeMarcus Robinson had this case last season with the Rams. You signed DeMarcus Robinson to offset the loss of Brandon Ayuk. Did you not believe that DeMarcus Robinson was going to be suspended the first? Is this a surprise to you guys? And now you're in this position of, oh my God, we're not going to have DeMarcus Robinson the first 3 weeks. Yeah. Wasn't that the idea? Wasn't that the plan?
That was something we talked about right when the move was made. So I don't know. I don't know what they thought.
I don't. The thought process is baffling to me, because you say, let's bring in an established wide receiver to offset the loss of Brandon Ayuk early in the season, and you didn't know he was going to get suspended? So, he'll be back week 4, and Ayuk will be back, whatever, maybe week 6, however. Mm-hmm. I just don't understand. I don't understand the thought process here with this. Because it's clear that you weren't excited about playing Jacob Cowing, and you wanted somebody who was very reliable. And you know what? DeMarcus Robinson is an above average wide receiver. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. Look, Matt.
Yeah.
Cowing and Jennings weren't hurt. It doesn't matter. They weren't planning on They weren't planning on Cowing being there anyway. It doesn't matter
Robinson
whether they were hurt or not.
Part of the first 3.
Yeah, Robinson was going to play regardless if they weren't hurt. If they are, and it's still baffling. I don't understand.
Yeah, I understand the idea of the injuries weren't a part of it when they signed him, but Jacob Cowing wasn't adjusting the top of the receiver depth chart. I mean, really, the only one that it changes is maybe Jennings and Pearsall were your 1-2, and Robinson's your third receiver. And I mean, you could use Jennings in the slot as they do every so often. And that would put Robinson at receiver 2. I just that's really the only receiver spot. It's just what are the Niners thinking here?
Well, even if Cowing wasn't hurt, that wasn't going to change anything. I mean, it's clear that you wanted to cover yourself for Brandon Ayuk's missing, mm-hmm. but the time that he was going to cover for him, he was going to be suspended. The timeline, it almost feels like the front office was like, he's going to get suspended? What? Mm-hmm. What were you thinking here with this? Because now let's even play a further down the line game. Juwan Jennings comes back. He looks good. So does Pearsall, right? We talk about, how they're going to use Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. Is he even going to see the field when he comes back, or is he just going to be like further depth down the line? Like this signing was supposed to be, hey, we can rely on this guy for the first few weeks. We can get by with him. He understands the system. And now, what is it going to be when he comes back? And again, it just feels like they're blindsided by the suspension.
Yeah. All right, receivers settled, Jason. We kind of know what it looks like now at this point with Skyy Moore. Let's talk about tomorrow, final preseason game. We're not going to talk about we're not going to talk about the thing that people might want us to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the backup quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. He might have something to do with the 49ers, Jason Aponte.
Taylor Heineke?
Hoops revenge game. Am I right, Jason? No, Jason, it is a very important game for the 49ers. They play the Los Angeles Chargers. 53-man roster spots will be decided at that moment. Kind of with what the final preseason game can be. I don't. When do what is the deadline for the 53?
I believe it's roster? Monday.
Deadline. Let me pull it up here just to confirm.
I believe it's Monday.
Tuesday. So they must cut down to 53 by Tuesday. So a lot of players will be making their last impression for the 49ers. Who is on your bubble of who can either make or miss the roster based off of tomorrow's game, Jason Aponte?
Man, it's got to feel like defensive line is going to be the focus here. I don't see how you can keep Sebastian Valdez off this roster right now, but he does need to show out, to really make an impression here as well. I think Nick Zakelj is on the bubble.
That's one I had.
Yeah, Nick Zakel's on the bubble. I personally am done. I'd rather see he shouldn't make this roster over Drew Moss. He's certainly not going to make it over Connor Colby. But Nick Zakelj for sure. Wide receivers, honestly, if you're a healthy body and you're a wide receiver, you're probably going to make this roster just based off of who's going to actually be ready. Chase Lucas, I think, has a real good chance to make this roster. Another good showing is going to really make it hard to get rid of him. Trey Brown is now on IR, so I think Dallas Flowers is safe. Darrell Luter Jr., you've really got to show something in this game, I think. I still believe that they're going to keep him around because of his special team stuff. Who else? Linebackers are pretty much set. I believe Gifford makes it with Fred Warner. He has a good chance of making it, Fred Warner. D. Winters, Nick Martin. If Nick Martin continues, then he may be the next man up when it comes to stuff like that. I really just think it comes down to like Nick Zakelj here, like in this one, and the defensive and Jacob Robinson's a good one as well too. I think I get scared about them trying to sneak Jacob Robinson onto the practice squad because he'll get poached, and I think that's something that they have to really, really make sure they take a good look at, because there's definitely teams that are looking at the 49ers and saying whoever they let go, we're going to jump on, because they do such a good job of finding undrafted guys and turning them into good players. So I think Dallas Flowers is safe. Richie Grant, Saran Neal might need to really show something here in this game as well too. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't know. But I do think that a lot of guys are safe. But Nick Zakelj, this is it. This is the final countdown, because if you continue to struggle, buddy, you got to go, man.
You just listed a bunch of names that I like. That one, Braden Willis. I think he's an interesting one. I've seen 9 a lot on the field. They have 4 tight ends right now with him and Jake Tonges. Willis has kind of been in this weird kind of in between spot. This might be his last chance. And then, not to mention a name from Monday, Jason Aponte, and obviously not for a roster spot. Another good Jake Moody game can go a long way, just with the perception of him going into the regular season. If he misses a couple field goals tomorrow, it's a little more up in the air. I think that's one to watch for. But yeah, you touched on a lot of them. The one I was going to mention was Chase Lucas. You got him just to kind of see where he fits in, because we haven't. Upton Stout's been dealing with injury. I don't think his depth chart spot necessarily is in trouble, but maybe a week 1 rotation between Lucas and Stout just to kind of ease Stout into it, because he missed the preseason. That's going to be a big one. And we kind of talked about it. I don't know if he plays tomorrow. I don't know. I just have this feeling I can't shake that Isaac Garendo's on this hot seat right now. And I don't know what it is. I don't think he's losing his spot anytime soon. I just have this weird feeling he's on this hot seat, and I as a podcaster, Jason, I might be creating content with that and making things up, but it's just it's a gut feeling. Sometimes you just got to go with the gut.
Well, you're not crazy, because here's why. The 49ers used a third-round pick on Trey Sermon.
Mm-hmm.
You were gone as soon as after a year. Gone. Ty Davis Price. Gone. It would be hard to stomach to see Isaac Garendo jettisoned off this roster after they used a third-round pick on him. Mm-hmm. The talent's there. He's a home run hitter. I still think there's a role for him on this offense as the kick returner, because I do think he can do a good job there. But man, if that's another third-round running back miss, the amount of jokes that'll be thrown out there, again, when Garendo was drafted, people were like, "Oh man, another third-round running back that won't be on the roster after a year." Can you imagine how loud that gets if he doesn't make this team?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a role here still for him. I think, look.
Yeah.
All right. So he was a fourth-round running back. Fine. But the thing is there's still a role here for him, right? And given the depth here, he's probably not going to see the field unless he's pressed into duty, right? That's why you bring in Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, he has to be a kick returner at this point, right? Like he's shown that he can at least do that very well, and he's working his way back from the shoulder injury. So it'd be tough. It'd be tough to see him go.
I got a little distracted. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, Jason, but Grant Cohn, he does his walk and talks after the practice. Instant analysis of the last day of camp and my first impression of Skyy Moore. This just popped up on my suggested from yesterday. Willie Snead quote tweeted Grant Cohn and said, hashtag bring back Snead the fourth, hashtag FTTB at 49ers.
All right, Willie Snead.
I just saw that's like just completely unrelated. That just popped up on my timeline. Willie Snead, him and John Feliciano making the push to make the 49ers.
And Marquise Goodwin.
Marquise Goodwin did it too. Oh my god, that one I liked. Goodwin was a good Niner.
No, he was fine. But look, guys, look, stop. Everybody, just stop, okay? Like just look, cut it out. Like Feliciano, that's fine, and I do think they need to make a call, for him. Eventually, especially if this injury to Dominic Pooney lingers, even though it doesn't sound like it's that, but just guys, I have no problem with Marquise Goodwin or anything like that, but Willie Snead, get a job.
I just saw that. I did not see that yesterday. I didn't expect a Willie Snead pushing for the Niners roster.
Well, did today, don't you remember that he was like, when they play roster politics, dude, you suck. So it doesn't matter. Like, what were you yapping about? What is my man going on and on about?
Somebody responded with this you and quoted that former 49ers.
Read it for me.
Receiver. It just says the article. Oh, you want the quote?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the quote real quick. Oh, I need to hit a paywall. Hang on. All I want to go back is to a team that isn't afraid to let guys compete for a roster spot. These last 3 years have been nothing short of entitlement. Competition breeds champions. But somebody responded to his tweet yesterday, said, this you. Willie Snead responded, this is an example of poor journalism. They only took what I said and ran with it to make up some sorry story. If they wanted to know what I really meant, they would have found out about the kind of competitor and fighter that I am. But people are lazy and want clicks. SMH. So he pretty much just said they took what I said, and they took exactly what I said and ran with it.
You know what's funny? He says it's entitlement for guys to fight for a roster spot. You sound like you're entitled to being allowed to fight for a roster spot when you aren't nearly as good as you believe. Look, I believe
Ask anyone in that 49ers building about me, and they will wholeheartedly tell you how much love I got there. It sucks I couldn't play longer, but I don't hold grudges. I'm a MF competitor, big MF Doom fan, I guess. I came in this league the ugly way. I just want to play football and win an MF Super Bowl year 12.
Listen to me. You say it's entitlement, and that I wish that this team wasn't entitled and let people fight for a roster spot. You sound entitled to being able to compete for a roster spot when you're not like that, right? Like, who was he supposed to get a roster spot over? Like, whatever, man. I don't know. Look, I don't know how we got on this, and I don't know how.
I just saw a tweet.
It's fine. We spent way too much time talking about Willie Snead the fourth, man.
I didn't
way too
talk
time
about Willie Snead today.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, at this point, he might be a healthy body, so pick him up.
Pick him up. The Spirit Red Option podcast endorses Willie Snead on the 53.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. All right. Look. Let's do this as well too, because 53-man rosters are due on Tuesday. We have games this weekend. Potential wide receivers that can be added after they are cut. Now, Jalen Polk was somebody that people were talking about. He's on season-ending IR, so he's out of the mix. Kendrick Bourne, Malachi Corley, Curtis Samuel, Deontay Johnson, Jaylen Hyatt. These are all guys that are on the bubble outside looking in. And now it sounds like the Adam Thielen thing is gone because he's a Viking now, pal. He's a Viking. So, like, the 49ers are not done here with making up this roster. They're not done with who they're going to be bringing in. Now, does any of those names knock your socks off? No. But that's the ilk of receiver that's going to be there, right? Like you can't expect the 49ers to tell you younger and cheaper and less expensive and then let's trade for Terry McLaurin. No, like that's not going to happen. You're just going to keep going with these type of receivers that are going to be cuts. Donovan Peoples-Jones is somebody that I think the 49ers have to take a look at. Big and fast and at least a deep threat. But again, there's not going to be a receiver that you're going to add as a difference maker that's going to all of a sudden reshape this wide receiver room. It's going to be these depth bodies, these camp bodies at the end of the the depth chart.
I think Kendrick Bourne is probably the best case for a guy who could make an impact just because of the past with the 49ers. I'm so happy you mentioned Jaylen Hyatt, Jason Aponte, because I had a tweet ready to go. There was a stat last night during the Thursday night game with the Giants.
Did you watch that game?
No, I didn't. I just saw a tweet.
All right,
Jason.
well, go ahead, and then I'll tell you.
Jaylen Hyatt, career including preseason, so it's a legitimate stat including preseason. Without Jameis Winston at quarterback, 218 go routes ran, 0 touchdowns. With Jameis Winston at quarterback, 1 go route, 1 touchdown. So Jameis Winston should be the starter in New York is what I'm hearing, buddy.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because the play before, Jackson Dart didn't slide and he had to be evaluated for a concussion. They bring in Jameis right away. And if you watch that game, Jaylen Hyatt got separation 2 times on straight go routes, which is his game. He's a speed guy. The first throw that he was open on, it hits him in the shoulder pad, the right shoulder pad. Like, just awful ball tracking. The second one, Dart literally puts it in his chest, and he drops it. Okay. And then Jameis goes to him on that one, and he scores on a touchdown. And Ozzie Sudfeld got cut. Tanner Mordecai's back.
Sudfeld's already gone.
So they saw one day of Sudfeld, and they were like, "Yeah, that's enough.
We're good.
But what I was gonna say about Hyatt is he's a speed guy. You'd be bringing him in, just taking a chance, low risk, high reward type of thing. But it's just, he doesn't have the catch toughness at the catch point, and separation is not his issue. Now, maybe in a Kyle Shanahan offense where he can enjoy more separation based on how Kyle gets guys open and his speed, it could be a move. But I wonder if the Giants just hold on to him as a back end guy on their wide receiver room and just say, listen, we drafted this guy. We still have a chance with him. But man, those 2 drops yesterday were ugly. Oh my goodness.
My favorite internal joke to make is anytime a receiver gets released and somebody mentions their drops, I'm like, Kyle Shanahan guy. Kyle Shanahan loves his drops because Niners receivers drop a lot of passes sometimes.
Damn.
Too soon?
Damn.
So ending the podcast.
I'm just shocked that you would make that joke. That seems like that's more right up my alley.
Dude, the drops are my favorite bit. I don't know why. It's always so funny. Jason, we talked about a lot today. I really enjoyed it. A lot of Niners news. We avoided the Trey area talk, which was
we could talk about it. We could talk about it.
Let's talk about it for a second. So the 49ers are playing the Los Angeles San Diego Superchargers tomorrow. There's a guy we might be a little familiar with playing quarterback. He's had a very solid preseason, Jason. Will you be one of
if you consider 42% completion percentage in a game solid?
Hey man, 42, but Will you be one of the people that if Trey Lance cooks the 49ers backup defensive players, are you going to be one of the people being like, oh, see, that's why they should have kept him?
No. And
No.
also 12 for 25 loading. It's look, I wish nothing but the best for Trey Lance. I think he's a great kid. It's not his fault it didn't work out. It's a
Yeah.
miscalculation from the front office, their timeline,
Mhm.
and his skill set. So I want you to have, I want you to have a successful career. And Trey Lance is going to bounce around this league because that's how first round guys, they're always going to get chance after chance after chance. And, but Greg Cosell talked about it and put it together masterfully when it came to what Trey Lance is doing well. And he's like, these are high school level first read completions. And we're supposed to believe that now Jim Harbaugh's helped him turn a corner. Well, in a way he has, because he wasn't making those when he was here. So, okay. But I wish the best for him. But when you look up at the stat sheet and watch the game, 42% completion percentage, what are we going on about here, man? Like, if Brock Purdy threw for 42% in any game, in any training camp practice, what would you be saying? So it just
Not
look,
good.
I'm happy for you, Trey, and I hope that you do well, and I'll always wish the best for you. But what is everyone going on and on about? That one throw down the field was very nice. Sound familiar? But then 42% completion percentage is what you finished with. Sound familiar? What has he turned the corner on? I'm just asking simple questions here. It's fine.
I don't think it's a surprise that Jim Harbaugh has kind of at least turned the branding around on Trey Lance. He's been very, I mean, we saw it we watched how many years of Alex Smith before he turned into a competent quarterback. So like, but again, even then, like you sit back and think, okay, Alex Smith took a jump, but it wasn't good enough to beat out Colin Kaepernick, right? So like, yeah, like the second they brought in Trey Lance, I knew what was going to happen because Jim Harbaugh's just that kind of coach. He is I'll say it. I don't think it's a hot take. He's a better coach with quarterbacks than Kyle Shanahan. I think that's absolutely true. It's almost
and
like
Greg Roman's offense is tailored to just one throw, like one read, go, right? Like we know that as well too. And again, it's against backups, but yeah, of course all of these things can be true.
Yeah, exactly. And Jim Harbaugh, it's almost like he played quarterback at the professional level in his career, and Kyle Shanahan never did. So like that obviously is there, but like ultimately we're talking about a guy who's probably going to be the third string, best case, second
he's not
string
beating
quarterback
Taylor
in Los
Heineke
Angeles for the third season of his career. I'm excited. Like I want everything to work with Trey Lance, but I'm not going to let a preseason game dictate how I feel about Trey Lance, and it's just it's a fun. I'll put it like this because Kawa Chipto, whatever it is, Trey hasn't been here like 3 years.
It's a Star Wars reference.
I've never seen Star Wars, so there you go. That's why I don't
man.
get it. Christ, man, watch the film. But it's a storyline for a preseason.
We've moved on. We've
moved on. It's just something to talk about in a preseason game because otherwise, we have to talk about a preseason football game.
Less than that, it's more just addressing the narratives that have been coming out. But I wanted to address something that you said about Harbaugh and him playing the position because I do think that's important. Harbaugh does understand what it is to be a quarterback, and that's very valuable. And I think his really good attribute is instilling confidence and understanding where, quarterbacks need their support, right? Like need the support, and I've got you, and I understand how hard it is. Kyle Shanahan wants his quarterbacks to see the game how he sees it. And I think that's a big difference. I think Jim Harbaugh understands the little things that need to happen at the quarterback position because he's played. And Kyle Shanahan wants you to see the game how he sees it, right? And in terms of this guy was open, why didn't you see that? So it's two different ways to coach the quarterback. It's up to you to decide which is more important. And obviously he doesn't have to do that with Justin Herbert because he's a finished product at this point. Like it doesn't matter, right? But I do think that is the difference. Is one understands the support and confidence that you need to instill in a quarterback, and the other wants to get you to see the game the way he sees it and compute it the way that he computes it. And I think those are two different things.
Yep. Yeah, they're different coaches, different. I mean, obviously different styles, as you can tell, between keep it cool Kyle Shanahan and Jim Harbaugh, who has a little bit of a history of not keeping it cool. Jason, last question: what's the move on the 12th pick in fantasy?
Depends. I mean, at this point, you've got to walk away in your drafts with either Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, or George Kittle if you really want to have an advantage this year. If you're at the 12 and you're going around 12-1, I am not opposed to taking one of those guys and wrapping up your advantage at at tight end, because you have to have one of those guys if you really want to compete this year.
Perfect. There you go. I would go Kittle, Bowers back to back 12-1.
No, we're not doing.
No. I'm not the fantasy football guy on this podcast.
No, it's not that. It's that. Look, that strategy worked for me one year when I got Kittle and Kelsey. But
you're gonna be shocked tonight, pal.
Yeah. What do you mean?
We got a fantasy draft tonight.
We do?
Yeah. Are you not in this chat?
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the thing is I 1 year I did Kittle and Kelsey, and it crushed. But every other year that I've tried that, even in Scott Fishbowl, like last year at Scott Fishbowl, because tight ends get so many. Like I took Laporta and Mark Andrews, and I was like, "Ha, you idiots! Who's the idiot? Me?" Because Mark Andrews started kicking up when I was already like about to be eliminated from the playoffs. Like, and I was like, "Oh, thanks a lot, jerk." So I don't know. I guess I'm off that one because it hasn't worked out. Now, if it's Bowers and McBride, now you're really being aggressive and mean. If it's PPR, then that's bully ball at tight end right there. So that you know what? Damn it! Don't talk me into this. All right, like I had a set strategy.
Ends, pal. Two tight ends. It's the way to move. It's the way to. Hey, just draft every 49er. There you go. There's my fantasy draft.
Leave your draft with Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, that's a good one. Russell Gage. I'm high on Russell Gage.
Stop it. In the ninth round, and maybe it's changing now because everybody's hip to like the wide receiver group. Like, but I was looking around at his ADP. Ricky Pearsall in the 9th round is stolen money right there. But I think that people are starting to get hip to that, and he's not going to be there in the 9th. So I mean, if you really want Ricky, you know what? My thing is toss ADP out when you want to get your guy. Get your guy. I don't care where you take him.
If you had a pick, because this is something I yelled at my friend for, you had a choice between Baker and Bo Nix. Who you taking?
Bo Nix, just because of the rushing game.
I was the wrong one. Damn it, Jason! You're supposed to side with me.
Well, the thing is this. All right, so Baker last year had an incredible season throwing the football, and he threw 40 touchdowns. A lot of them were garbage time or when they were behind. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't suspect that's going to continue, especially with Chris Godwin not being there right off the rip. Jalen McMillan is also, out for a long time. Sure, Mike Evans is still a dog, by the way. He's a Hall of Famer, and if you disagree, you just don't know ball. And Egbuka is really good as well, too. It's going to be hard for me to see him duplicating that with Bucky Irving in the backfield. And Bo Nix just offers you that rushing upside that you got from him last year, and I think that's where I lean that way.
I made fun of my friend for taking Nix over Mayfield, but now I feel a little more.
There's no wrong answer. But when you have that rushing yard upside, that's the cheat code, and that's why those guys go higher. That's why you go certain guys over better passers, right? Like I think Baker Mayfield's a better passer right now than Bo Nix, but Bo Nix offers you that rushing upside that is hard to duplicate. When you get that from your quarterback, you're playing with house money at that point.
Not to sound like Rich Madrid, but I talk in real football, pal.
All right. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback than Bo Nix today. Absolutely.
In reality.
100%.
Fantasy football. I think that's where I lose fantasy football a little bit.
Fantasy football, give me Bo Nix.
Just give me the Madden overalls, and I'll make my pick based off of that. How about that?
I mean, that's fair too.
All right, Jason. Hey, it's been fun. We'll be back Monday. Talk about the 49ers Chargers game. Maybe back Tuesday with the 53-man roster breakdown.
We're not doing instant reaction tomorrow?
I am maybe not watching the game live.
It's fine. No, it's fine.
I'm going. We don't have to going to. Hey, I really like this preseason for me because this is the second preseason game in 3 weeks, and I'm going to Korean barbecue during the game, and I'm all about that Korean barbecue life. So I'm not going to go to Korean barbecue. I will watch the game on Sunday. But that's a good reminder, Jason, for when the regular season starts. We'll actually be doing instant reactions together, week 1 for the Niners right after the games.
Yeah, man. And I think it's good that we still take this time off. And then we have that whole week where you guys can enjoy your holiday.
Mhm.
Summer is going to be over.
Mhm.
And, for you parents out there, the kids are going back to school so you can get some time off for a little bit because I can tell you how hard it is during the summer to try to keep these kids occupied.
Keep them busy.
Um, whew, not
All
for the
right.
weak-hearted.
No, I am not. I do not envy you in that, Jason. I envy you in a lot of things, not in that way. But that's okay, Jason Aponte. When I grow up, I want to be Jason Aponte. But hey, that's
Stop
where
it.
we'll end the podcast. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Bam.
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 Bam.